Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for being here as always, and today I am joined by the wonderful Jess of the Star Wars Refuge, both forums and YouTube channel. There we go.
Yeah.
This is effectively
We're multimedia.
Yes, exactly. This is effectively my 5 a.m. So it's going to take a couple of minutes for my brain to catch up to what my mouth is trying to do. So we'll
Totally
get
understand.
there. But anyways, Solo released.
It did.
I know.
I'm so happy.
I know. It's such it is a good movie. And honestly, like, I feel bad because this Rambling Back episode is going to be comments on my spoiler review. But that spoiler review was done before I had talked to anybody about the movie. Mm-hmm. And on my first watch, and before I talked to anybody about it, I was very Like, I don't want to say but like, it didn't have that Star Wars magic for me. Like, it was good. Mm-hmm. It was a really fun movie. It was a really fun heist movie set in the Star Wars universe, but it didn't have that Star Wars-y arc for me. Mm-hmm. And that is a bad thing, I suppose, but it's not like that ruined the movie for me either. Right. But now that I've been able to talk to people about it, especially Katie, one of my co-hosts over at the Star Cabal podcast, and also another one of my co-hosts at the Star Cabal podcast, Edward, and watching some other people's reviews, including yours, Jess, I've kind of come around on it, and after seeing it again a second time too, I've gotten to the point where I'm actually like, I actually felt some of that Star Wars magic, especially during like the spoilers, real quick, just as a quick heads up. Yes, this entire video is going to be nothing but spoiler discussion, so maybe not watch this if you haven't seen the movie. But during the whole Kessel thing, during the whole Kessel, the not the actual Kessel run, but the whole
in the prison,
the planet sequence or whatever, or the planetoid sequence, whatever. And I actually got like, oh yeah, no, there's the Star Wars magic now that I'm actually bothering to look for it, as opposed to worrying about, oh my god, is the fan base going to hate this just as much as it hated the last movie? And know, I didn't have that weight on me to realize that, like, oh no, most of the fandom actually is pretty much okay with this movie. Sweet. Yeah. Okay.
I remember I went through something similar. I remember when I did my first thoughts on Last Jedi, I hadn't talked to anybody yet. And there was so much in that movie. I had very complicated feelings coming out of it the first time. And I, to this day, feel bad that like my first kind of review, I felt very neutral on the movie. Because the second time I saw The Last Jedi, I fell in love with it. Mm-hmm. But I needed to talk about it first, and I needed to see it again, and then I could like process it. So every now and again, whenever I see somebody's watched it, I'm like, but watch my other stuff.
I know, but watch my... I really do think... thank you, Sam. I truly appreciate it. Anyways,
he was agreeing.
Mm-hmm. I do think I'm probably going to end up like in like a month or so. I'm just going to be like multiple viewings review or something like that. Mm-hmm. Something, like after 5 viewings or something like that, I might end up doing a review again on it, just for the sake of having it there.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. We'll see how it. We'll see how the rest of how the fan base really reacts over the coming months. But at least the initial response has been really, really positive.
Yeah.
Or at least not negative.
Right.
The only negative. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was probably going to say the same thing you were, which is the only negative stuff seems to be people trying to compare box office numbers.
Yeah, which all I got to say is Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Ant-Man had like 50 in between 50 and 60 million on its opening weekend.
Yep.
And nobody was kicking and screaming for Kevin Feige's resignation.
Right.
Just saying.
And what I keep saying is none of the other Star Wars movies has had to premiere like the weekend after Deadpool 2, mm-hmm. and while Infinity War was still going strong. Like,
yeah, like this is what happens when when it's mainly the main fan base of Star Wars.
Right.
Like, that goes to show you how important the casual viewer is, or the less
Yep.
involved fan is, to the box office numbers. So
Which is
yeah,
pretty interesting in how they treated Solo then, because I feel like where the casual fan could absolutely enjoy Solo, it was really a love letter to not the casual fan.
yeah, I know it was pretty. Yeah, there's some deep cuts that I'm still finding out. Like,
Right.
yeah, like Brian Young does. He's
Yeah.
a host of Full Sith and everything like that, and he does lots of writing all over different outlets, sci-fi
Mhm.
and Big Shiny Robot and all that. Um, he's already come out with like 2 articles, I think, on like
Yeah.
all the Easter eggs and stuff. I know Alex is working on his diligently, as hard and as fast as he can, but that's going to be a 4.5 hour video. Alex
Yeah,
over at Star
for
Wars
sure.
Explained, all of his references and everything, just because. Yeah, like I caught on my first viewing like 8 or 9 like really big references, and then on
Right.
my second viewing I caught another 8 or 9. It's
Right.
like,
That's
good
been
lord.
I said this, and I can't remember which one of my videos, but I said in one of them that it was a really surreal experience for me to sit in a Star Wars movie and know that something's a reference and not know what it's referencing to, but I was still okay with that because I think there were so many things in there for people who have read like the 2 Han Solo trilogies and the Lando trilogy from back in the day, which I haven't done.
All right.
So there's a lot of that kind of went over my head, but that's okay, and it encourages me to then want to go and read those books. So yeah.
Yep, exactly. I'm right there with you. Because, yeah, there was. I mean, let's see here. Right off the bat, Aura Singh.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was
Aura
like,
Singh.
when I heard that, I'm like, you jerk, you did what?
I know, right? That
Instantly,
was Boba's
instantly,
mom.
I instantly hated Beckett at that point. I was like, nope,
Nope.
you're the worst.
It's fantastic. I mean, yeah, the Pikes, the Lando reference, it
Yep.
was insane how good it is.
Everywhere, just
I
left
know.
and right. Or even when they're like, why did we hire this moron? We should get Bosk. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, Bosk. That's awesome. That's so awesome. Oh man. Well, I guess we can start delving into the comments and
Yep.
all that. We've got 3 comments for you guys today. Let's see. Let's start off with one from Jonathan Howard. So, excited to be the first comment. Hashtag first. In my opinion, the reason it didn't have that Star Wars umph that you refer to is because it's the first on-screen content or TV show that is not directly connected to a bigger story. It truly is its own thing, and I'm fine with that. There's more to Jonathan's comment, but I just want to concentrate on this one paragraph that he
Yeah.
wrote, and we'll get to the rest of it in a second.
Hmm.
Um, I can see where you're coming from there, Jonathan, because like Alex was putting that in, he did that in his spoiler review. I hate to constantly refer to other people's reviews all the time, but he made the point that, uh, for some fans, including I think myself and him, that it's a little bit harder for us to get emotionally involved when there's not a huge set of stakes,
Yeah.
when there's not a huge consequences, a huge list of consequences that could happen to the galaxy, depending on how this character acts or how this thing turns out. So I can see where you're coming from on that. I don't know. What do you got to say about that, Jess?
I can understand it. I think what I find interesting about that, and I'm not saying that Jonathan is saying this is necessarily a good or a bad thing, but I think it's one of those kind of either way you swing it, it's a problem thing. So on the one hand, if you don't involve galactic consequences, you're not going to be super worried about what's going on. But on the other hand, if you involve galactic consequences all the time, you get the oh no, not another super weapon syndrome that the old EU had for a long time.
Here's a
Where
Sun Crusher and a Dark Saber and a
and an Eye of Palpatine and the Centerpoint Station and the list goes on, which is where
Mhm.
I kind of laugh whenever people are like, the Star Killer base is another super weapon. I'm like, yep, I'm pretty used to that actually, but
Yep.
okay. But I think it's interesting to the point because it's like you don't really want everything to have these galactic stakes and have the galaxy be in peril every single time, or it wouldn't be just a fun popcorn flick. So it's one of those where it's like, yes, that's true. Um, I guess for me, I can find that kind of emotion in seeing some of the stuff we got to see and all of the fun fan references. Even though I knew Han was gonna live. Everyone else, I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. And so to that point, it's how quickly do you get attached to those characters. But yeah, in that way, yeah, I can say that the film didn't necessarily have an umph, but I don't think it was supposed to. And I don't think we necessarily want every anthology film to have that umph, I guess. So like, I think it's just more of, I see those kind of statements and I always think of them as 2 + 2 = 4 statements. Like, I don't really know what I'm like, it just is, and you either liked it or you didn't.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think that's the hard thing that the fandom is having right now, is that like sometimes you're just not gonna like things. That's okay. Like, I didn't like Rogue One. Rogue One didn't work for me. It still didn't work for me. Solo worked for me a lot better than Rogue One did, and that's even after just the one viewing, and after my second viewing and talking to people about it, I've actually gotten to the point where I'm really liking Solo. But even after talking to people and everything like that, Rogue One still didn't work for me. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay that I didn't like a movie, at the end of the day. It's totally fine.
There's more. There's going to be more.
Yeah, there's Thrawn Alliances comes out, and Most Wanted just came out, and then there's going to be Resistance this fall, and then there's Episode 9 next December, and there's Star Wars Celebration. There's tons of ways for me to enjoy fandom, So...
Well, and I think I understand for a lot of people it's hard to put films and other stuff in the expanded universe on the same level. But I feel like I got used to that because I watched Star Wars The Clone Wars, which is going to be relevant at some point in this discussion. But there's episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars that I loathe, that I refuse to watch because I think they're terrible. But I love the series and I own the entire series. So I got used to, I can love a thing, but not like parts of it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I don't have to then think the whole thing is a wash because there was an episode where Ahsoka Tano found laced Mountain Dew at a school and then it became a big deal. Like,
I forgot about that.
I wish I could forget about that episode.
I'm going to be rewatching Clone Wars soon.
The part that really gets me is at the end, Satine burns down the warehouse. And I'm like, but there was evidence in that warehouse. Can you burn it down after you get the... No, okay. Like, no. I just hate everything about that episode. But it's okay. But I love the show. Yeah, I adore the show.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I see what you're coming from. And actually, Jonathan's next bit of his comment, out of his 3-parter here, it's... he actually kind of goes on the same thing. This has been my experience. I rewatched all the Rebels episodes lately, and now I have had some time. I still enjoy the filler, quote, he puts quotation marks, filler episodes. When at the time I didn't like them and was ready to get back to the main storyline, after some time I had just become appreciative of the fillers as fun adventure, or as a fun avenue, to be subjected into the Star Wars universe for a brief time without needing to have too much emotional connection, knowing episodes like Trial of the Darksabers would bring a tear to my eye. That's just my take. So Jonathan's kind of on the same point with you there, that it's okay to not like things, and even later on you might come back to it and enjoy those lighter things. And no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, to slightly go off topic, but to that point, I remember I love the cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender, and but I didn't see it when it was on. Well, okay, I saw it sporadically when it was on TV, but it was literally, if I sat down and it happened to be on, I would watch it. Like, I was one of those people like, who's that guy now? I don't know what's going on, but I would still watch it.
Who's the Cyclops guy?
What is he doing here? So in college, 2 of my best friends sat me down and we watched the series start to finish, and they were getting really upset at my reactions, but I was reacting to it differently, binge watching the show as opposed to when they had to wait each week. So there's like an episode late in the series in the Firebook where there's like a play that has, and it evolved
and it recaps everything and like a really
and they hate it, and I was laughing out loud the entire time and I loved it, and they were like, how can you like this? I'm like, it's funny. Well, when I saw it, all I cared about was getting to the Fire Lord and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but I have this on Netflix. I'm not waiting. I'm going to watch the next thing in 20 minutes. So this is funny. And they just could not deal with how I was reacting. But I
Yeah.
think with a lot of stuff like Rebels too, with filler episodes are annoying when you know that now you have to wait 3 weeks before you get something else, but they're not annoying when you're binge watching.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's that yeah. That might be the reason why I'm okay with the lower stakes in Solo
Yeah.
is that I know so I mean Throne Alliance is probably going to have some pretty heavy stuff in it.
Yep.
And then there's going to be Star Wars Resistance, which is going to be lots of fillery stuff at the beginning because they're just going to be establishing the show and establishing the characters. Yep. And you know what? That's okay. Like yep. Usually season one of a series, any series, I don't care what you're talking about, Doctor Who or Stargate right. SG-1 or Avatar: The Last Airbender or whatever. It's always, lower stakes, not super. I wouldn't say not compelling, but not.
Right.
It's something that lacks gravitas, to use a
yes.
fancy word. You just end up. You're going to have just lighter stuff every once in a while, and that's okay. It's okay to just have a snack instead of having this huge Star Wars buffet to just delve into, like The Last Jedi. Mark right. Suter on Twitter put it in a really good way for me, and that is that Solo is like the best burrito you've ever had, whereas The Last Jedi is The Last Jedi is a 7-course meal from the most expensive, pretentious restaurant in town. And yes. You know what? That's okay. Those are both. Right. There are good things. There are good and bads to both of those things.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm right there. I'm right there on that. Let's see here. Last bit of Jonathan's comment is, anyway, great review, great content as usual. Now on to the new Resistance TV show, which we already touched on. And may the force be with you guys and gals and droids. Can't forget about droids and their rights. Yeah, which actually I'll use that as a quick segue just to talk about L3 for a second.
Yeah.
Who, man. On my first viewing, she was kind of, I wouldn't want to say annoying. She just felt like kind of a throwaway up until the Kessel bit. And then, oh, yeah, she died. That's sad. Mm-hmm. Then she lived on in the Falcon. But then Katie just went crazy about L3 and just completely changed my entire viewpoint on that character. It's so awesome now because Katie put it in this way is that every single time that she sees the Falcon diving in to save the Resistance or save the Rebellion, she's going to hear Phoebe Waller-Bridge's voice
right.
say, doing the fist bump rebellion thing.
Right.
And the fist pump rebellion thing. And like she's right up there with some of the smaller or some of the other characters like Leia, like Holdo, like even Saw Gerrera, like Empress Nest, who are they're the first they're the start of the rebellion in a lot of ways. They're kind of the first rebels. They're the first ones that stood up and went, no, this isn't right. We need to fix this. And that even feeds into the way that like The Last Jedi, I don't have it sitting here right here with me. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. But The Last Jedi, like incredible cross sections in the visual dictionary, both like go on kind of a bit of a like they go on for a little bit about how the Resistance treats droids as other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they treat their droids as people, like with equal rights and everything. And they don't see them as tools. And the Rebellion kind of does the same thing. I mean, maybe not so much in the new canon. We don't see it. But there's never been anything to eliminate that possibility.
Right.
And I mean, in the Legends, everybody named their astromech. Every single X-Wing pilot named their astromech and, was their best friend and everything like that.
Yeah.
So just seeing L3 as part of the Falcon, as, the part of the noble steed that carried the heroes through the entire original trilogy and is now carrying the heroes through the sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
That, her death definitely hit me a lot harder on my second view.
What's interesting with L3 to that point is the thought of L3 and the Falcon actually fundamentally depresses me because Han owns the Falcon and not Lando. So now I just think of how Lando is like forever separated from L3 because Han took the Falcon from him.
Yeah,
And that
I did see it. I don't know who published it, but there was some review or some article about how horrific it is that, you know, L3, who's all about freedom and everything like that, ends up getting locked into a thing.
that,
But I don't
that part doesn't really bother me. It's that she's separated from Lando now and how close they were.
yeah, I kind of see her becoming part of the Falcon as almost more substantial than this, but I suppose the best thing that I can come up with off the top of my head is like a locket with the picture of a loved one in it. It's that kind of thing. That's kind of how I see it. And then that locket sort of gets melted down and then gets put into a new sword or something like that. You know, that's kind of the best way that I can equate it to.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does kind of suck that like Lando's separated from L3 now, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll see if there's any sort of extra EU stuff that deals with that like explain, like I kind of wish if Last Shot would have came out after Solo.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they could have covered that in Last
Shot, especially with the way L3's like doppelgangers that she created show up and whatnot.
Yeah.
I guess to throw some Last Shot spoilers in there. Sorry, but
no, it's fine.
It's been out for a little while.
Yeah, as soon as a book hits a month old, I usually kind of like, no, that's pretty good. I'll speak freely about that on Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. So. But yeah, I do think that there is that question does need answering. As much as I don't like answer, as much as I'm relatively anti. This question needs to be answered. Yeah, because I like having things to fill in the gaps with. Like I that's part of my fandom. That's part of my enjoyment with fandom in general is to sit there and go, I wonder what does this mean, and how did this character get from here? Like a lot of people are like, we need to understand exactly what happened to Darth Maul, and I'm totally fine if they do decide to explain it. But I'm also having a ton of fun figuring out, okay, how does Darth Maul go from head of all 5 crime syndicates to crazy hermit on Malachor?
Malachor, yeah.
Yeah, how does that transition happen?
Where does it go? Yeah.
Yeah, and I like I said, I am hoping that they do end up telling that story somehow, comic book, TV show, anything.
Akira movie?
Yeah, Akira movie maybe. That'd be nice.
I'd take that.
Yeah. Katie has a theory that Maul is going to be kind of like that there's going to be a Boba Fett movie and an Obi-Wan movie, and Maul is going to be kind of a Thanos-y character throughout all 3 of them. And then we end with, and then the story is wrapped up with the end of the Kenobi movie being the confrontation on Tatooine and Twin Suns.
Yeah.
So we'll see whether or not that ends up being a thing. I'd love that personally, but you know. Anywho, well, we've managed to ramble on for almost half an hour now. Let's see here. We'll go on to the next comment here. Anonymous guy who comments, formerly random bored guy with a YouTube account.
Great name.
Yes, fantastic name. Saw it yesterday afternoon before a lot of others, and like TLJ, it has some moments I didn't like or just felt weird. But I really did come to enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would, and I'm not completely surprised that the fan score is dropping on Rotten Tomatoes and others, since it's become clear that the vocal minority are trying so desperately to make it drop and flop.
Right.
And then he also adds an edit, and this is my 6th favorite Star Wars movie, higher than 7 but below 6.
I got you.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's...
People who are able to actually numerically rank their favorite Star Wars films.
Yeah, I've
never been able to.
I've had to.
Yeah.
For a project that I'm working on with somebody else. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like I've got like a 6-page Google Doc right now of just like my notes as to why I rank this Star Wars movie and that Star Wars movie here.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to talk about this is kind of a I usually try to avoid talking about super contentious things, but the whole vocal minority thing, trying so desperately to make it drop and flop. Well, we already kind of touched on the box office numbers.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are using that as, see, this is an example of what happens when you piss off the fan base.
Mhm.
And then other people are saying, no, it's because it came out at the wrong time, because of Deadpool and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I kind of, I'm a fence sitter in a lot of aspects of my life, and I think it's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of the fact that no, people are like a solo origin story, like the less involved fans are sitting here going, some of them are gonna go, really, a solo movie, like an origin story about Han Solo? Yeah, no thanks. Yep. And that's okay. They're perfectly fine to do that. It was a risk to make a solo movie in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And then it's also at least to me, I think that it's a combination of the fact that nobody asked for a solo movie, the fact that a sizable portion, I'm not going to say a majority or even a large portion, but a chunk of the fandom,
a measurable
a measurable size of the fandom, a significant amount of the fandom didn't like The Last Jedi enough to not want to go see Solo and not continue to support what Disney makes with the Star Wars IP.
Yeah.
And then it is also then add into it that, you know, you got Avengers Infinity War, which just beat Force Awakens.
Yeah. it's destroying, but everyone knew that movie was going to destroy. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. And also Deadpool 2, like you said. Mm-hmm. It's a combination, at least to me, I think that it's a combination of a lot of things, which is leading towards the fact that not a lot of people are going to go see this movie right now. Also, it's coming out on Memorial Day weekend, so people have travel plans and people have, you know, this, that, and the other thing. I'm not sure what the history is with Memorial Day weekend releases.
The best website for stuff like that is Box Office Mojo.
Yeah, that's what I normally use. I don't know, whenever I'm talking about box office numbers and stuff, I always feel like kind of like a, I don't know, maybe a pretender almost a little bit, because it like I don't know how the Hollywood machine works. I don't know how like I don't know what the budgets are. Like I get kind of frustrated with everybody that's like, well, Solo only made this much money on its opening weekend, so then Kathleen Kennedy needs to be either change her direction or she needs to be replaced or Right. And it's like, you're a movie critic.
Right.
You don't know. You cannot understand the intricacies of the business dealings in between Lucasfilm and Disney. Like, you just can't.
When I look at this box office stuff, I think there's a very real element that I've heard a lot of people talking about that will be a very real element for a decreased dominance in Star Wars box office numbers. But to that point, I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily, but I think what I've heard a lot of people talking about on our forums on Port Haven, which is the name of our forum site, don't ask, it's a long story, but a lot of people were concerned with the anthology films and with Star Wars movies coming out so rapidly that Star Wars ceases to be as special and that Star Wars isn't an event. You know, back in the old days, the original trilogy, they came out 3 years apart. Prequel trilogy came out 3 years apart. Now we're getting a Star Wars film every year. And when it's less special, when it's less of an event, you know, there's less of I need to go out and see this right now. Otherwise, I have to wait 3 years for a premiere. And I think that's a real thing. I think that over time, and now Marvel continues to do really well, but if you look at it, you know, Ant-Man didn't blow box office numbers out of the sky.
Now Iron Man 2 didn't, I don't think.
No, now Black Panther did, but there's other reasons why Black Panther did that had other excitement around that film for why I did it. But usually standalone Doctor Strange wasn't blowing anything out of the water.
What did Doctor Strange do? Now you got me curious. I'm wondering what Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I don't even know. I didn't even look it up, to be honest. I know I liked Doctor Strange, but I didn't really.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I thoroughly enjoyed Doctor Strange box
Yeah,
office. $677 million,
that's a solid
which is
number.
what, even with the decrease in views, that's right now what people are kind of guessing that
Right.
they're going to land at. Even Thor Ragnarok didn't break $1 billion,
And it was,
and it was
I loved it.
everybody loved it.
Right.
You
And
know,
so I think that's a necessary thing that I think we should all acknowledge. More Star Wars movies make Star Wars premieres less special. The question is, do I care that Star Wars premieres are quote unquote less special, or do I want more Star Wars films? And which one of those two is more important to me? I tweeted out from our main Twitter account, which is either that account is either myself or my partner in crime, Professor Django. We kind of share it.
Mhm.
But I sent out one that said, without the Disney buyout, do you want to know what the solo box office numbers would have been?
Yep.
0.
Yep.
They would
I
have
saw
been
that
0.
tweet. I saw that tweet. That's yep. I'm right there with you. Like that's where it comes down to. Like, I get it. I get the worry that, like, oh, but Star Wars is dying or whatever.
Yep.
If you're worried about that, that's fine. I get it.
Yeah.
I even
It's
expressed
legitimate.
that in I
It's
even
a legitimate thing to be. Yeah.
I even expressed that in my spoil review that
Mhm.
I'm a little bit concerned about the Marvelization of Star Wars.
Yep.
But Star Wars wasn't going to live on much longer if Disney didn't buy them out and start making these movies in the first place.
Yep.
Even if Star Wars, I don't think Star Wars is ever going to die, at least in my opinion. I don't think that it's ever going to die as an IP. Like, I'm going to be on my deathbed waiting and hoping that I can survive long enough to be able to read
that next thing.
read that next comic book, or even if
about
it is just a
Ahsoka's
comic
granddaughter or something, whatever we're on to by then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna be, I still have that feeling that no matter what, it's gonna survive. I mean, look at how long Star Trek survived with a much less money coming in, with much less, with a much smaller fan base. Maybe in some ways more passionate, but
maybe. But I mean, even then, they had movies that are classics and ones that no one wants to remember. Just the same. And Star Trek is still going just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Star Trek is existing just fine. As Doctor Who disappeared for 20-something years. And then it's like, oh, no, with a couple, okay, maybe there was a couple radio dramas or whatever, and some books and whatever, but it disappeared for 20 years, and then suddenly it reemerged, and, then it was like the biggest show in American television when it's produced by the BBC. You know, it's... Yeah, I don't think that Star Wars can... I think that Star Wars can be killed, but I don't think that it's anywhere near its last legs. Especially, and even if Solo only makes 400... At the very lowest, this is me going outside of the professional, estimates. Even if at the very lowest it only makes $450 million, that's fine.
That's enough it made a profit. Like, that's the thing. People are like, is it a flop? I'm like, technically speaking, a flop is a movie that doesn't make its money back.
Yeah.
Like, we're in this. I was having a discussion in one of my comments with somebody about how I think it's just weird that if a movie doesn't make over $1 billion now, it's somehow not super successful. I just don't know when we hit that point now where, because we're talking about how Force Awakens is going to fall, or no, Last Jedi, I think it's Last Jedi was going to fall out of top 10. But every movie in the top 10 made over $1 billion. Like, that is just such a height for a movie to reach. Because the only way you get there is to have US and international audiences to love both audiences have to love the movie. And that's not as easy to do as people think.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the reason why Star Wars doesn't do so well in, like, East Asia markets, especially China, is because Star Wars is a lot about individualism, and there's just a cultural divide there, Like, that's just...
I also, I read an article, I can't remember where I read it from, but it was about how when the original trilogy was coming out, a lot of Asian markets just weren't in a place of trade where they were getting the original trilogy. So you have a generation of people that in America that were growing up with Star Wars, but not a generation of people who were growing up with Star Wars in East Asian markets. So the prequels come out, and people can follow it because they're prequels. You don't need to see the ones that happen after. But then you jump to the sequel trilogies, and they're like, why do I care about Han Solo? Because they didn't grow up with Han Solo, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not The Last Jedi's fault or The Force Awakens fault. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you look at, yeah, and yeah, that's a fantastic point that you're making there. And I
Hmm.
mean, just to finish the point that I was on about
Yeah.
that there are cultural differences too. Like
Yep.
you look at how well Transformers does, and Rogue One
Yep.
did pretty well over
Yep.
there. Why? Because, well, in that culture, they value group effort and,
Yep.
community and da, 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 and
Yep.
when you have movies like the original trilogy and even both the sequel trilogy movies, you don't necessarily have that. You don't have the scrappy band or you just
Yep.
have these two or three really massive characters that you're
Yep.
supposed to identify with that specific person, and that just doesn't quite work. It's the same thing as how the Transformers movie don't do well over here, but
Right.
they do fantastic, or not necessarily super great over here, but they do fantastically over in China because
Hmm.
of the ensemble cast and because it's a group of characters.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, it just comes down to the fact that box office numbers don't mean all that much to me. I'm like
Right.
to be as long as they make enough money that I
Hmm.
know that Disney's not going to get scared.
Yep.
I don't. I'm fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. You know what I mean?
Yep. I like box office numbers. They interest me, so there's
Mm-hmm.
something I like to look at anyway. And I think they're fun in a sports team sort of way. Like I do like saying, "Ooh, my team made more money than your team," but I just don't lose sleep over it.
Yeah.
Like the level of which we're taking it seriously, I find a little concerning. I just think they're they're fun. They're a thing to get excited about, or maybe like pretend mad for 20 minutes in the same way you get to pretend mad when your sports team loses. But if you can't go into work the next day over it, then that's kind of a problem.
Mm, yeah. Exactly. It does come down to the point where it's uh, like uh, all art is made for your enjoyment,
Hmm.
and either you enjoy it or you don't. If you don't
Hmm.
enjoy it, that's fine.
Yep.
If you do enjoy it, that's fine.
Hmm.
And you shouldn't let somebody else's opinion on that thing change it, and you shouldn't worry about whether or not everybody else in the world loved it enough to be able to go and see it and boost up those box office numbers.
Right.
I just don't see the point behind it.
Yep.
It's just like I find it hard to debate any of the behind the scenes stuff. Like, should Dave Filoni become head of creative? Should blah 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 blah
Right.
blah.
And everyone hated Dave Filoni when he started, which is what I think is funny.
I know, right? But everybody hated Ahsoka too, and then
Yep.
before that, everybody hated C-3PO and Jar
Yep.
Jar, and
Ewoks and
yeah. But
something.
anyways, no, I find it difficult to talk about that because like it's just unnecessary stress that I'm putting on myself, I guess.
Yeah.
Like why me talking about it isn't going to change Disney's mind,
Right.
you know. Me talking about it isn't going to have any real effect on what they decide to do. The only thing that's going to
Mhm.
change their minds is whether or not you're going to go and spend money to watch their movie or get their streaming service or buy their books.
Right.
That's how you're going to be able to influence what they do and don't do. So I feel like it's unnecessary stress to even think about what the behind the scenes stuff is in anything. I mean, outside of Star Wars too, you look at Marvel or Star Trek or anything like that.
Yep.
Like I'm really excited for new Star Trek stuff. I won't be going to go see the Quentin Tarantino one just because I can't stand Quentin Tarantino as a person. But
Which is fair. Yeah.
but yeah, it just that. But that's like as far as I'm gonna go with my behind the scenes motivations.
Yeah. Well, even to that point, a lot of people thought Solo was going to be terrible because of the director change. But I felt like it was far more cohesive than Rogue One was, and like at risk of starting a Rogue One bash party, which I don't want to do, but I know you and I both have opinions on Rogue One. I thought Rogue One was very strong in the second half, but I thought it had a lot of like trying to find itself problems in the first half. I didn't feel like Solo had that problem, and that was kind of funny to me because it did change directors and probably had more behind the scenes drama than Rogue One did.
Yeah. Well, I think that the reason why Rogue One suffered is because um Henry Gilroy isn't huge into Star Wars in the first place. Like, he's not a big Star Wars fan. And he's the guy that came in and reshot 40% of it and restructured the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
You know? And as much as I love Gareth Edwards, I think Gareth Edwards' movie might have been a little bit more for me, you know?
Possibly. I mean, there's certainly a lot. For my complaints with Rogue One, I can tell you there are parts of it I adore.
Oh,
so
yeah,
there's
for
clearly
sure.
something in there that just wasn't formed correctly for me. Which, again, is fine. I know a lot of people who it's their favorite one, and I have no qualms with it. But
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was actually talking to talking to a friend of mine last night, and he said, you know, it's kind of, what was his exact quote here? I could just bring it up on Facebook Messenger, because then I'm actually where is it? I've seen some reviews this evening that were not very kind to the film. It seems to ignore or discount the heart and emotion that I observed, even on a single viewing. It is disappointing to me that yet again a Star Wars film has left some in the fandom divided, especially when I enjoyed this film as much as I did. And I'm like, and he was a huge fan. His stance on TLJ, if I understand his stance on TLJ correctly, is that it has some of the best Star Wars in it and some of the worst Star Wars in it for him.
Yeah.
And that's fair. And I'm like, and me, an unashamed lover of The Last Jedi.
Yep.
Yeah, I empathize with that. I empathize with the fact that something that you love is kind of acting as a fissure in the fandom. And I think that just comes down to the fact that nowadays we live in a fandom where we live so close together. Like, we're all kind of stuffed into the same house and we all can't get away from each other.
Yep.
And we're hearing absolutely everyone's voice all at once.
Yep. That's absolutely what I think happened with Last Jedi. Even on our site, there were people who loved it, people who hated it. I even had a guy who loved it specifically because he hated The Force Awakens so much. He loved it because it undid everything in The Force Awakens, which is an argument I will shoot down to the day I die.
Same.
But that's why he loved it. And so even then I was like, I don't even know how to talk to you because I agree with you, but I also really don't. And it was just like, it felt like I hate to say it, but it felt like Thanksgiving dinner in an election year. Like, is what The Last Jedi felt like. I almost wonder if we're just projecting our cultural issues into our political issues into The Last Jedi. Like, we don't want to talk about the real world problems anymore, so we're going to fight about The Last Jedi.
Yep, I think that's kind of where we got to. Actually, that's a good way of seeing it. It is very much a political. It even is kind of divided along political divides too.
Sometimes it is.
You know, it just it's very interesting just to see how the fandom changes. My big barometer that I'm going to be using is the attendance at Star Wars Celebration.
Yep.
That's going to be my big barometer, is how much did the fandom did take a hit. You know, The Last Jedi did cause some issues, and then those issues kind of expounded on themselves. That's a word. But they all ended up kind of like, The Last Jedi kind of call it, like, The Last Jedi is kind of a catalyst that kind of created a lot of turmoil in the fandom. And I'm curious to see how much that ends up affecting things like, the box office numbers I don't worry about, because there's so many different factors that go into it. But the attendance at Star Wars Celebration, that will, at least to me, I think that'll be a pretty accurate
there will be the outlier in that it's in a different city than it's been in a long time, which is good for me because I can actually go because of the city they picked it to be in. But other than that, though, I think that'll be spot on. I'm also kind of curious to see how fans interact there, because I feel like I've never been to a celebration, but I love watching the live streams and stuff, and it just, maybe it's the propaganda I'm seeing, but it's always felt like a place where everyone seems to come together and just enjoy Star Wars together. It's like, okay, but are we going to have like bathrooms for people who liked The Last Jedi, bathrooms for people who didn't. Like, how are we going to separate ourselves here?
Yeah, I feel like from what I understand, from the big conventions and stuff that I've gone to, it much as I hate using this term, but I can't think of something better to say. But there is kind of a self segregation almost.
Yeah.
In between, like at the big conventions, there's the Star Wars group that go over here, and then that Star Wars group kind of, self segregates into prequel fans and OT fans, and also a third group, which are people that like them both. Yeah. And then also the Marvel people go over here, and then they kind of differentiate amongst the different heroes, and
right.
So I think I don't know. We'll see. I know that I'm very specifically going to be wearing the shirt that I'm wearing right now. I know you can't see it right now, Jess, but it's just it's from the Steele Wars podcast. It's
okay.
It just says shill in the Disney font.
Oh, I saw your tweet about it. Yeah. I'm wearing my favorite one, which is it looks like a Jurassic Park logo.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. But yeah, I do plan on wearing this shirt to Star Wars Celebration.
Awesome.
In part because it looks like looks kind of like a staff shirt, because it's got like just the like it's got the small like breast pocket emblem of Chill Steele Wars podcast, whatever, and it's got like big lettering on the back of it. It's the same thing.
I'm looking forward to see what kind of cosplay comes out of this. Like, are we gonna have like a Ruin Johnson cosplay there or something? See how creative people really get. Or maybe there'll be protesters. Then I'll really know that this is intense if there's like anti-Disney protesters outside of Star Wars Celebration.
My brain just kind of had an aneurysm. I'm sorry. It just like I just thought about it, and it's like
I was like, I'm gonna say this as a joke, and then I'm like, but how much of a joke is it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how much of a joke is that? Like, I could see that happening, and then like I could even see like counter protesters, and then that would even make me cringe even more, and I'd just be like,
and then we just end it all with like toy lightsaber battles, and we're just beating each other with plastic out in the fields of Chicago.
Yes, exactly. There are Buckingham Park or Buckingham Fountain and Grant Park and stuff are like just north of McCormick Place, so there will be plenty of place to do that.
To have our fan wars.
Yes, exactly. We'll see. Anywho, I suppose we could try and roll our way back over to Solo.
Yep. Sorry.
No, you're good. We both went a little bit off topic, but that's okay.
We went into the maw. Now we're gonna shoot out over here. And
like I said, like I always say, the disclaimer is in my channel name.
Yep.
I don't stay on topic ever. Anyway, so we'll go into our last comment here from the Fat Batman. Solo is the first Star Wars movie that I got to see with my girlfriend in theaters, and we both loved it. Well, congratulations, Fat Batman. We both love grinning and feeling great. It has things that a very casual fan like her could appreciate, and it had things for a super fan like me to appreciate. It was exactly what I wanted, a fun Star Wars movie. Can't wait to see it again. There were 2 scenes that gave me goosebumps, because I very specifically mentioned in my spoiler review that I didn't get any goosebumps. Yep. Seeing Han and Chewie flying the Falcon together for the first time, and freaking Darth Maul.
Darth Maul?
I know. So, yeah, I've already kind of talked about what now is giving me goosebumps. For me, it was on my second viewing. I got goosebumps from L3 and Wando. On Kessel. I got goosebumps from Han and Wando on Kessel, like right when Wando tossed the DL-44 to Han, and he turned around and then it fired, and it was just that the DL-44, like Han's DL-44 has a very specific sound to it, and when it fires, and for whatever reason that just like yes, like that got the fanboy heart racing, and it was so good. But seeing Han and Chewie flying the Falcon together was a fantastic moment. When they when Kira just got out of the seat and he's like, "Okay, sit down. All right, let's do this."
You do it.
Yep.
I can tell you, I really appreciated that scene because, to again kind of go back to Last Jedi for a second. The joke is like Rey keeps looking for her parents, but Chewie was the one that like took her to see the boyfriend he doesn't like, and is the one that like flew around the galaxy and took care of her, and it's like Chewie's really Rey's dad when you get down to it. I liked seeing he was kind of doing that with Han too, because he's just sitting in that cockpit. He knows how to fly, but he knows Han wants to impress his girlfriend there and have her sit in the co-pilot seat. He's like, that's fine. And he's just sitting there watching the ship crash, like, you do you.
That's
And then
definitely
like,
something.
okay, fine, I can't, and I gotta fix the things. And I was like, that's just Chewie to me now.
I know. I love the joke that Han is like Chewbacca's fourth dog.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And I love it. It makes me so happy. Because yeah, just for me, like seeing them fly the Falcon together was good, but for me it was the actual excuse me. The last shot before we get to wherever Lando was wearing that Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah.
Or no, it was after that. It was the very last shot where they went into hyperspace.
Yep.
And they both reached up with both their hands, and they each one took 2 of the 4 hyperspace levers or whatever they are, and pushed them forward, and they jumped into hyperspace. That was a big moment for me.
Yep.
I'd also say that probably the look that Han had when they first jumped into hyperspace, his first time aboard the Falcon, that was like, yeah. Because like I get that, another passion of mine is cars, and working on cars and everything like that. So, I obviously, deviate most of my funds into buying plastic wrap for Star Wars, but but in the end, I still love cars and stuff, and I get that emotional connection to a vehicle, to a piece of freedom,
Yep.
And it was that was a great
moment. I think for me when I was watching it, because I talk about this in some of my stuff, which is I like Han, but Han has just never been my favorite character of all time, or like the character I could necessarily relate to. But the stuff that gave me those Star Wars moments was a lot of the ancillary stuff. So right in the beginning, when Han and Kira are living in those like weird slum tunnels, and he has to go face Lady Proxima, I just remember sitting there going, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie, and I am so happy. And I feel like that's probably one of those things that's really other people aren't gonna like, but I'm like, there's like a worm lady, and she's just like what is this? And I felt like I was reading an old EU novel, only it wasn't terrible. And I'm just like, there's like, which is that not all the old EU novels are terrible, but some of them that are weird are weird and terrible.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is great. So like that was a moment where like at that point I'm like, this is gonna be a good movie. I don't even care. Because I was saying before I went in there, what I was most excited to see was the space octopus. Like unashamed, just wanted to see the space octopus and why the space octopus was there. I want space octopus, a Star Wars story. I would go to that, no problem. And so it was like
I'll have to admit that I've been over the space tentacle monsters since not Borgullet, because Borgullet I actually love, but
what Borgullet needed is it explicitly said that like why Saw's crazy or something, because it was also used on Saw. I think I would have made that scene better. Anyway,
but I've been kind of over the tentacle monster thing since the Rathars, but that's just me.
That's fair.
But no, I see where you're coming from, and yeah, that I had a conversation with Katie on the Star Cabal podcast about that. That I was 8 when the Phantom Menace came out.
Yep.
So that sort of naive, childish, wait, what? Kind of things. Like that is baked into Star Wars for me. Like a lot of people, like, I don't know, like sometimes people take Star Wars a little bit too seriously.
Yeah.
And just let it be weird. Just let it be weird and like, wait, what? Like one of the charms of Star Wars is that sometimes it's not that great. Sometimes sometimes just weird stuff happens that just exactly. Like that's part of that's part of what I love Star Wars about, that I love about Star Wars, is that sometimes it's just weird. And for me, like I said, the prequel trilogy was mine.
Yep.
I've been saying this a lot lately, ever since I kind of realized it, and that's that the original trilogy is something that I'm borrowing
Yep.
from my uncle's generation, my mom's generation, my dad's generation. Whereas the prequel trilogy was mine. That's my Star Wars,
Hmm.
and that's something that I can kind of claim to be my own.
Yep.
Whereas, so like seeing the like, wait, what, of like Jedi rocks and stuff
Yeah.
like that makes me happy to see,
Yeah.
because like sometimes it's like, wait, why is there a two-headed announcer guy announcing the pod race, and why does that guy
I
look
love
like a
those guys.
why does that guy look like a saltine cracker, and
Right.
and why is there a worm lady in this Solo movie, and I don't know, I love that.
Yep.
It makes me happy, it makes my heart sing.
And then nothing's gonna top that Darth Maul scene though. Oh my gosh, I was so happy
I
because I said
know.
that because she's talking to him, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a thing. Like I could tell they were building up to something, and I'm like, all right, so are they gonna build up to like a reveal of a character we've already seen in the movie? Are they gonna build up to like I was talking to somebody who thought it was gonna be like the Empire was really behind it or something, and then but then like the voice, the I recognize now, I realize I recognize Sam Witwer's voice, but like my brain wouldn't let me think it was Darth Maul because it didn't make sense that it was Darth Maul. Like, so I'm sitting there like, I know this voice. Why do I know this voice? What character is it going to be? And then there was that glorious face, and I sat straight up in my seat, like straight up, like
Hmm.
what is this?
I didn't sit straight up in my seat, but you know, I have the recliners or whatever in my things too.
Yep.
And I did the reverse of sitting up. I kind of like leaned even further back and like kind of shifted in my seat and just kind of went, uh-huh, and nodded my head. Yeah, they went there.
They
Because I
went there.
loved it. I loved it so much because that's just the story group going, you know what? Yeah, I know that 90% of the people going to see this have no idea Darth Maul's alive. Don't
Yep.
care.
Don't care. Like,
Poof.
and like
Exactly.
to me the boldest part was showing that Maul had a lightsaber, because my thought was before that moment I knew it was Maul. The audience might not know that it's Maul, but they could go, "Oh, it's another alien like Maul. That's interesting." And like then they could have left it where even if you don't know what's going on, you're not like WTF.
Mm-hmm.
But then to like use the lightsaber, it's like no, we want to make sure every single person in that theater knows that this is Darth Maul.
Yes, exactly. They even like played like a bit of they played the
Yep.
Duel of the Fates motif and everything, just to be like,
Yep.
this is Maul. Like, this is serious. Like,
So you
I
know.
know, and I see a lot of people. I've seen some comments from people who don't keep up with the
Shows.
TV shows or the comics or anything like that. That are like, wait a minute, isn't he dead? Yeah. Now you guys are
I
getting the
mean,
same
now he is.
reaction. Yeah, now you guys are getting the same reaction that we had back in 2010 or whatever,
Yep.
when we saw him in that crystal ball
Yep. We
on
were like,
Dathomir. Yeah, like we're yeah, we just had that minor stroke basically, and it was
Oh,
fantastic.
it
It
was
was fantastic.
beautiful. I'm
It
so
was
happy.
it was funny because like my thought process was, holy crap, it's Darth Maul.
Yep.
Oh, he's on Dathomir. Oh, cool. There's some great new canon stuff. And then immediately I went, oh, oh my god. Katie is gonna lose her freaking mind, because Katie is like the biggest Darth Maul fangirl you could ever
Got
find
you.
on the planet. And yeah, it was,
Yep.
yeah. Like that was my first reaction, is like, oh my god, the fandom reaction to this is going to be perfect.
It's gonna be great.
I know.
I felt bad too because I went with the same friend I've seen like all the Star Wars premieres with, and she's a huge fan. But she hasn't kept up with Clone Wars and Rebels as much, which it's more of a time issue for her than anything else. She's not against the show. But I was sitting there and I'm like, I really wonder how much she's gonna like this now because this is in it. Because I knew she knew he was alive, but she didn't see the show, so she didn't know like how he got there. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Did you, or would you be willing to like expound on what did she
Oh,
think
she
of it.
ended up not really talking about it. I don't know if it was out
Mm,
of respect for she knew I was freaking out about it,
okay.
or she just decided to talk about everything else. Um, so
Okay.
she didn't end up, and I didn't really press her on it because I was just like, this was so exciting. We just ended up talking about everything else because in the event she didn't enjoy it, I didn't want to like rub salt in the wound or anything.
Yeah, yeah, I
But,
hear you. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, seeing Darth Maul back like that was like the final nail in the coffin that like no, they're not ignoring the prequels. Like you can't
nope, not
like
at all. Not even
sh-
close.
should they be maybe doing a couple of novels somewhere over in that direction? In my opinion, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, should they make a little bit more prequel centric
Content. Because
content?
you,
Yeah, they should. At least I think they should. But that's okay. You
that's
know,
all right.
that
They'll get there.
yeah, this is one connected canon. Like,
Yep.
you know, Marvel goes Marvel what was it? I don't even remember who posted it, but it was something like Marvel's like are you kidding me? We can't keep up with keeping all of our television shows and our comics all, you know, consistent with the movies. We don't want to
Mm-hmm.
confuse our fan base. And then Star Wars is like, hold my beer.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wait just a second.
Yeah,
Hold on a second.
yeah, exactly. Because like I totally agree with you. I saw your review of it, and you know, you've left a comment on my um
Mm-hmm.
uh spoiler review that yeah, like it like that this movie is safe is not right. Like
Not right.
yeah, like
In
not
some ways it is, but in other ways it was like, but this was pretty bold.
yeah, like there's some bold decisions with the storytelling and with which characters to include and which characters to
Yep.
not include and yeah. They could have oh good lord, I can't stop yawning. But they could have done a lot more with
Yeah.
this in general.
Yep.
They definitely could have they definitely could have made it full blown fan service, and there was a lot of fan service in this.
There was, but it was well done. I think
Yeah, like
it wasn't in your face. Here's a neon sign. We don't want you to miss that this is fan service, fan service. I think one of my favorite moments that I honestly keep forgetting because it was such a short bit, but when Han is going to sign up for the Empire and it's playing the Imperial March and
I
that
know,
like
I know, and like
I was laughing so hard.
it was so good. It was so good.
It was like some sort of really bad amusement park music, like laughing.
So great. And then I mean, if you look at it from like I've actually got a video idea that I'll be doing pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
But we're so late into this video that I feel comfortable talking about it real quick without
Mm-hmm.
spoiling it. But I plan on doing a video which is like good fan service versus bad fan service.
Yeah.
And it just comes down to the fact that does it serve the purpose of the movie? Does it meld with the
Right.
movie correctly?
Right.
Blue Milk being in more focus than the terrified mother? Not that doesn't blend in with the movie. You seeing how Han got his DL-44 by seeing Beckett just toss it to him for at the beginning of his first real job?
Yep.
That's fine. You know, like there's way more fan service I think in this than there was in Rogue One. But
Yes.
this fan service is much better executed.
Yes, I would agree with that completely. I mean, even how Han got his name, I have no problems with how Han got his name. And it was something I was concerned about. I was really worried because Iger had said a while ago that we were going to find out how Han got his name, and I was like, oh dear, this could go south really easily.
His real name was Jacob Starstrider.
Yeah, right.
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
But
yeah, I don't know. I've seen extreme reactions on both ends of the spectrum with regarding his name.
Yep.
But I don't know, like it didn't bother me. Like it feels like I should be bothered, but I'm not.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I don't know if because I knew it was coming that I think a lot of the people this is just a guess, but I would guess that a lot of the people who had a super strong negative reaction didn't realize it was going to be a thing, and so they were just kind of hit with it. Whereas I knew months before, so I was like, "Okay, I've come to terms with it's going to happen. Just want to know how they're going to do it."
Yeah, the one thing The one thing I was confused about is why Han didn't just, because he talks about the fact that he knew his parents,
Yeah,
like he knew his dad at least,
yeah.
and why didn't he continue to use his dad's surname, or
I,
does Corellia have some sort of weird caste system where like when you're just a
yeah.
factory worker you don't get a surname, or
I,
I don't
I,
know.
w- I was wondering because what sticks to me is the way the Imperial worker asks him is he's not like, "What's your surname?" He's like, "Who are your people?" So I kind of wonder if maybe in this version of Corellia that your last name is your people, and then Han has been kicked out of his people in some way, so he didn't feel right using it. But that's totally a headcanon
Yeah, that's just a
thing.
thing. It's a
Yeah,
thing for whatever. And you know, that's one thing that I love about Star Wars is the fact that it leaves so much, even with the huge new Disney canon, it leaves so much room for headcanoning.
yeah. There's still, and some of that is just because they haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah.
But some of it, I think, is they, you can't fill in every single crack, or you're gonna eventually conflict somewhere.
Yeah, and even it just gets boring for me. Like at a certain point it would just get boring to
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, okay, so here's this and here's that and here's that and here's this." It just wouldn't work for me personally.
Yeah.
Anywho. Well, I think we've been recording for a little over an hour now. I'll let you get your voice rested
Yeah,
up.
it's almost there.
It's
I'm almost
almost
done. I'm almost done with my days as General Grievous.
Yay. At least until next year, or the year after, when you get
Another one, and it's like, ah,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been
General Kenobi.
General Kenobi. Yeah. Fantastic. Anyways, yeah, I'll let you rest your voice. Thank you for being here. Would you like to let the kind people of the internet where to find you?
So we are on the YouTubes, which is probably the easiest thing for a lot of you because you're probably watching this on the YouTubes, which is youtube.com/the Star Wars Refuge. We are also a site which is port-haven.com or forums.port-haven.com, where it's a blog space, or you can find us on Twitter at Port Haven Forums. We're super chatty and love to talk to everyone. So come on over and say hi.
Yes, I cannot recommend their channel enough. Cannot recommend their posts, their forums enough either. Somehow or another, it seems to always stay so much more civil than most of the like Reddit subthreads or subreddits, whatever they call them, or any of the Facebook groups or anything. You guys seem to have a good handle on a good solid community over there.
We're a lot of old timers. We're actually back in the day, StarWars.com had official forums, and they shut down. And a lot of us are refugees from the shutdown StarWars.com forums. It's where Port Haven comes from. It's a Legends thing. It's where old pilots went to retire.
Yep.
So we called the site Port Haven for that reason. And then that's really hard to market. So we also call ourselves the Star Wars Refuge.
There you go. Oh boy. All right. Well, you guys know where to find me. You guys, it'll be down in the descriptions down below. I'll also put links to Yoda Bauer's stuff as well. And we will get out of here. Thank you guys as always for watching. And as always,
Thank you.
may the force be with you guys. Take care.